right.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Art of Being with the Act Matrix and sometimes Pro Social Matrix podcast. I'm Kevin, one of your hosts. There's the other host.
I'm Phil, the other host.
If you're watching, however, he's down below me in the Brady Bunch screen on Zoom here. And we also have Leann. Well, introduce yourself, Leann.
Hi, I'm Leann Harris. I am excited to be here to talk about ACT and the art of being. I am a ACT-based coach. I'm also an analyst in IT, so I have a foot in many, many, many worlds, which is part of what I want to talk about today.
Cool.
Nice.
And if I recall, you wanted to talk about books too.
Books. Well, I thought this might give a little context.
She's, and for the folks not watching on YouTube, because this is on YouTube and on iTunes and that stuff, she's surrounded by books. She has done a great theatrical tableau of surrounding herself with books on very nicely done bookshelves, by the way. And so run over to YouTube and see the video. But other than that, just imagine her surrounded by books. So basically, well, to start off with, we're going to talk about whatever her topic of books is, and then we'll range into whatever she wants to talk about, because that's the way our art of being goes. However, you reminded me to ask you the question. Yes. So what is your art of being, Leann, in regards to, you can use the ACT matrix or not, whatever.
I'm going to start with a story to help illustrate.
Great.
I'm about 8. I know I'm taller than the coffee tables in the living room. So we're going to go between 8 and 10. I was a big reader as a child and was always desperate for something to read. And as a child of the 80s, that would include the same cereal box every single morning, if that's all I had to read.
I remember those days.
Remember those days?
I remember those days. I do too.
I had it right in front of me. I had mine, my sister had hers. Yep.
And if someone wanted to know what was in Lucky Charms, you could tell them.
Yep. Yes. Yep.
So I remember coming into the living room and being utterly desperate, going through my mother's women's magazines, and found a book on the table called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and How to Listen So Kids Will Talk. If I can get that sentence out. Those of you, again, in the 80s, this was a very popular book.
Oh, yes.
Big time.
Right. This hit apparently when I went back as an adult to see how popular this book was. It was popular enough for my mother to purchase it.
It was popular.
Yep.
Right.
I remember as a child, and I think most of us experience this, being confused by adults. Kids were starting to bully and be mean in school, being very confused about that. And just growing up with a sense of curiosity about the world. So I figured, well, let me read this book and see if I even understand half of it. To my surprise, it made a lot of sense to me. To my very young brain. Now, not claiming, I did go back as an adult, and yes, I missed most of it. But as a child,
whatever dialogue you got, right, yeah.
Right. You could get hey, this is how you approach things. And I remember my mother talking to me about cleaning my room and doing my homework. Typical child things. And I came back with something I learned in the book, tried it out. And to my utter childhood astonishment, my mother changed her approach. And we actually had a little bit more of a conversation. And I remember walking away from that just astounded, thinking, I have the power. It's like She-Ra with the sword. I now have a way to affect my environment with knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that childhood experience really sums up everything I'm interested in now as an adult. That sense of curiosity, the sense of asking the right questions, knowing that I don't have to know everything, but I can certainly look to others and resources such as books, and now we have the internet, to look up things that I'm not familiar with, and then take an actionable step to implement the knowledge I've just gained.
There you go.
I mean, what else is there to the art of being?
Well,
So,
none.
just question it, learn it, do it. And I think as an adult, the reason I wanted to talk about books is I have a Instagram account, #Bookstagram, for nonfiction books, self-help, personal development, creativity. I'm also a trained coach. And what I surprisingly discovered, because I just started the Bookstagram account for fun. I love books. Let me talk about it in the public. Wait, you mean there's a social media tool that other people who love books are going to go look and I can get book recommendations? This is fantastic.
Amazing.
And started sharing books and found that other people who read nonfiction books didn't go do them.
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised.
They didn't go do them?
They didn't do what they read.
Yeah.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
They will read them and not do anything with them.
I was like, well, wait, then why did you buy the book? I also have a background in behavior. Started out with animal training 20 some odd years ago. And, so I know enough to be dangerous. I know BCBA. I am not there. However, knew enough to be dangerous.
Oh, hold on a second. We had an acronym fly by. Behavioral
BCBA. Want to break that down for our listeners?
No. Phil knows it. Phil, you do it.
Oh, board certified behavior analyst.
Thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
I couldn't come up with it either, but that's it.
Couldn't think of it off the top of my head.
But it's BCBA. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. I like to cure up acronyms.
Yes.
So.
Thank you.
Yep.
I knew enough to use that background in behavior and background in Buddhism to learn ACT in the first place. It was enough to get me through the Blue Book. Which was a little bit of a slog. So if I wanted to, as we say in IT, eat your own dog food.
I've heard that
again, we will explain. Eating your own dog food is a term in IT when you write an application and then you actually have to be the one to use it.
You have to use your own application.
Yes.
Yes. And in the olden days, that was mostly the reason for writing an application is you had a problem to solve.
Yeah, you were trying to solve something.
Oh yeah, I started with Apple IIs in 1989 or whatever, and you had to write basic code because that's the only thing you had. Other than that, it was a paperweight. You had to write code in order for it to do something. So that means you used your own application.
Exactly.
Right.
And which nowadays may or may not happen as much.
No. You can write code now and it just goes into the hinterlands and you never use it. With people using your code cussing you out.
That whole user experience idea, not quite there.
Exactly, right. But this way, you do eat your own dog food. You write the code, you use it. Gotcha.
So I had to slog through. Well, I shouldn't say slog, but it really was tough for me. It was
You're talking the blue and gold original 1998
original ACT book.
Yeah.
Right. So that's once again for the podcast listeners. It's in 1998. Steve Hayes, Kelly Wilson, Kirk Strassel published the first ACT book, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy book. And it has a distinctive blue and gold cover. Yeah. And hence it's become known as the blue and gold original ACT book. And it's a slog.
Thank you. It was a bit tough. Agreed. From someone coming in without a background.
It is a bit tough for people coming in.
For people that were right.
With a background. That was right.
These two have made me feel much better that I found it such a challenge to get through. But I was hooked once I could figure it out. And what I kind of figured out going through this book was how to break very complex, very technical terms down and say, okay, what author do you expect me to do with this info? In my
Ah,
day job, it's very similar. I translate geek to business and back again. It's my job in a company in IT to talk to developers who are very, very smart, and then talk to business users who are very, very smart, but they do not speak the same language.
Ah, yes.
I act as translator.
Yep.
And that has been my role similarly with ACT and learning all of this is in my own head translating, okay, this book, whether it's ACT, and I don't claim to have gotten very far through RFT, relational frame theory.
Ooh.
Any
The
of those,
purple. It's the
right,
purple
the purple book.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I like a challenge, can't you tell?
Yes.
Going through those books and breaking them down, and can I systemize that process of breaking down a highly dense book? And the other end of the spectrum are the books written for the general public, but maybe more inspirational and hard to determine what my next step is. I call it the next morning test. If I read a book and I do not have 3 actionable items that I can take the very next morning, I might as well have read a book of poetry, because that how-to book didn't break it down enough for how-tos.
Gotcha. Well, but that's a cool criteria.
Yeah, I like that.
So for me, I want to go through a book that I'm reading. There's like, I love Brene Brown. Just sign me up, head of her fan club. Totally love her.
My wife likes her as well, right?
Totally love her. But when you read her books in the very beginning, you're not quite sure what you're supposed to do different. You can feel hope. You can feel inspired. You can be really motivated.
Right.
But you may not be clear what to do the next morning.
You're motivated without a direction.
Exactly. And as a coach, you could see how that might make me twitch. For those of you who are only listening, it just, I can't take it.
Yep.
So I found myself breaking down a lot of these popular books that came out that are bestsellers or close to bestsellers, and trying to help people figure out how to do the book.
Okay.
So
Cool.
that is the whole thing. So how does that fit in with the ACT matrix?
Good question.
This
must be a rhetorical question.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to.
Oh, good. Okay. Because we're waiting to hear.
It is a part of, now I'm not putting the nonfiction book in the middle of the matrix,
No.
but there is a sense of noticing. What are my values? Why is this book important to me? Why did I buy it or borrow it from the library or steal from a friend?
Right.
What's important to me?
Well, that, or is it a toy, or is it an away move?
Ooh, exactly. Well, this could be like a 2-hour long.
Oh, well, say, yeah, like you said, we can go lots of places here.
We can go lots of places with that, but folks, that we were talking about an action, and then you look back on the action,
right,
with your noticing self, and you say, "Gee, did I do that to move towards something, or did I do that to get relief from something?"
Anyhow.
Right, and you could have bought a book for either way.
Yeah,
exactly. You could even be in the bookstore trying to decide, of all the books on the shelf, what should I pick? One of the criteria is, what are my values? What is important to me? Is it relationship? Is it, what is important to me in this context? Helps me determine.
I got even better on you. I like being in bookstores.
Yeah.
It feels good to be in a bookstore.
Oh, well, that's a given.
That many hours in bookstores.
So I could be going to the bookstore for relief.
You could be, to kill time.
As an away move.
Yeah.
To avoid cleaning the house.
Well, yeah. Exactly. So even going to the bookstore by itself. Sorry, I digress. But you could be in the dang bookstore just as an away move to get comfort.
It's some relief.
Relief from something. But now you're browsing around looking at the fantasy novels and the self-help books and the history books. You're going through the aisles. Right. So
And you need to pick a book because you only have $20 on you. So you can't buy the bookstore.
Oh boy, constraints. Uh-oh.
$20 constraint. Okay.
Which nowadays that better be a paperback.
I was going to say, you're not going to get your hardback for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Not unless you get it on the bargain rack out front.
Go down to the for sales part. Right?
Exactly. We're at the for sale rack. Which book do I pick?
Uh-huh.
Right. Okay.
To me, I'm going to use what's important to me. Yes, I could get a book on creativity, or I could get a book on art, which, trust me, there are times that we'll get these books.
Oh, yeah.
But if I'm truly trying to accomplish something, again, take some action, it's important to me as a person to be able to take action on a particular topic. So that's going to help me know what's important to me and helps me focus onto which book. There's that sense of am I moving towards, what comes up when I'm looking at these books?
Mm-hmm.
Fear of I can't do it. Fear of it, this is going to be too hard.
Applied astrophysics.
Applied astrophysics, unless it's Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I just made that up, but right. Unless it's right, you can really see a use for it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I can do this.
Right.
Well, not only that's going to be useful toward who or what's important to
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
Right.
So that may look like a lot of fear around, I don't know the right book, I can't do this. But what it may look like is, of course, standing there for a while, trying to pick. But again, taking that one more step onto the matrix of just picking it up and making that committed action to, all right, we're going to try this book. Doesn't mean it's the right book, doesn't mean it's the perfect book. There's no set criteria to knowing if that book is perfect until you take the action of opening up and starting to go through and read it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're talking about doing the matrix in a bookstore as you're holding a book.
With $20 in your pocket.
That's all you get, $20 in the matrix. That's all you've got.
Okay.
And we've never had this one, Phil.
No, it's never happened.
That's wild. Okay. Then you're deciding, is it toward or away? And if it's toward, is it actionable?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I don't want another book to help me make away moves. Thank you very much. I think I got that covered.
Yeah. Okay.
Got that.
But it's okay for others.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Freely chosen values. Have at it.
Yeah, he's right.
Have fun. But you're talking more of the actionable.
Yeah.
More of the get her done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be like a true get her done. Like, we are not talking about the book getting things done. Very useful.
Mm-hmm.
I do like it, but we're even
Stephen
talking
Covey,
about,
by the way, that's who she's.
that's what it is. The book's option B. I know last year or the year before, lots of people loved it, but walked away with, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're supposed to do option B. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Right. You're supposed to do whatever option B says to do.
Just do that.
Right. Just do
The
that.
only problem is like, crap, what's option B?
Yeah, really.
I forgot. So if you don't know what option B, if you can't recall it the next day,
You failed the next day test.
Right.
Yeah.
She came on. Now, Leann just hit on a sore topic with a lot of these books.
Yes.
That I have seen out there in, podcast land or whatever. That is setting people up for failure.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And to your point, a lot of times, and I think this is one of the reasons I want to start talking about books a little bit more, is letting people know that, especially in the self-help industry, it's not that there isn't good information out there. It's that information, it doesn't equal action. And it may not be set up to be contextually sensitive.
Fancy words.
Mm-hmm.
To me, as part of the reader's role, is figuring out and determining how realistic is some of this for me in my life.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
You can't, right. You're wanting to make change, so steps must be taken. But everything is workable. Eventually, maybe not right now, but but trying to find that context in your life where your environment is setting you up for success and not actively working against you. Just like they say, don't try to change jobs, move houses, and have a kid all at the same time.
Right. In chapter 1.
In chapter 1, you're probably not setting yourself up for success. So one of the questions is this really a good time to try and do this book?
Timing.
Good question, because the book will be available later on.
And if it's on your bookshelf or TBR, to be read list, you'll have it for as long as you have your TBR.
There you go.
Dang.
So making sure your environment is setting you up for success. If you are working 3 jobs, remembering to be gentle with yourself that you have not finished the book in 48 hours is okay. So I think one of the other tools is reading these books with mindful compassion to your environment.
Whoa. So now we've gone further back into noticing world while we're standing there holding this book with $20 in our pocket. Like, what is my current context in life? And what that means, folks, is, are you currently working 3 jobs? Don't have enough time, barely have enough time to be in the bookstore. And within that context, how does this book fit?
How does it fit?
That's what you're saying?
Exactly.
Right. How would this fit?
Right. A lot of my friends say, well, I don't read nonfiction because I feel so guilty because I never get through them.
Well, I told you that topic comes up, right? It's the guilt inducement of the nonfiction self-help books that basically say, if you would just do these steps, you would be grandly successful. And then most of us don't do the steps, and so therefore we're a failure. It's just that simple, folks.
It's all your fault. You just didn't do what the book said. You would have been
screwed up again.
Right. And because you can't see my face smiling if you're only listening, that is not the approach I take.
No, she's not taking that approach at all. But it's a legitimate criticism of the self-help book industry. I know, because I've talked to many people that with exactly that kind of response. I read that book, I thought I was doing what that book said, and I failed miserably. And so, and then you find out, well, the books are setting people up for failure. The famous example of that which was the one that where you could think your way into success? The Secret. The Secret. No, well, it was, that was.
Oh, The Secret.
That was the first one. But The Secret was the big giant success, made it onto Oprah and all this stuff, which basically just gave the simple message: if you would just think the right way, you would be successful. Well, guess what happened, folks?
Right.
A lot of people were not successful. So ergo, that means they weren't thinking the right way, right?
The victim shaming or the
and their circumstances in life may have been that they had pretty well zero chance of really improving their anything, and it wasn't to do with how they were thinking. It was everything to do with the context, where were they living, in the circumstances as they were in. And so a book comes along and makes them feel like a failure. And that has been publicly written about and talked about The Secret. So I'm not saying anything I haven't literally heard or read about that. I don't mean to pick on that one book. There's others as well.
And even more recent examples. I mean, I could look at half of them. It is environment sensitive. It is, and even define success. Maybe in this context, what's important to you is realizing something must change and searching for, through a book, through a podcast, what some of those options might be. So setting too high a criteria for success.
That's the American way.
Right.
Oh, you mean overachieving? If I'm not constantly achieving, I am nothing.
That's the American way. Yeah, that's getting written about a lot now too. That puts us all in a death spiral.
Yep. Bigger, better, faster.
Man, you're really contextualizing these books, and so the book needs to fit your circumstances. That you have a prayer of doing what the book tells you to do.
Exactly,
Tomorrow,
and that's
after
hard
you finish
to
the book.
right after you finish the book, even halfway through the book. There are legit some books that, and this is another thing. How many hot buttons of Leann's can we hit today?
Yeah.
The publishing industry has much more to do with the final book in your hand than I think most people are aware of.
I have two books that are a credit to that.
So you may have heard the sentence, I need more words in your book or I can't sell it.
That's what I tell people. They say, I want to write a book. And I immediately hit them with the lingo. I was like, okay, how many words are you going to write? Well, aren't you going to ask me what I'm going to write about? Doesn't matter how many words are going to be there, because that determines the length of the book and whether it's sellable or not. And they will come back and they will ask you for more words.
Mm-hmm.
They won't say much else. They'll just say more words.
And I have heard some of my favorite authors bashed because, well, the second half of their book was fluff. I can't believe they put something out like that. And it always makes me feel bad because that author, I may have heard a couple of interviews and they're a lovely person, but publishing standards, industry standards dictate X amount of words.
You needed more words.
Nonfiction. You need more words, unless you do self-publish. And then we do have the entire marketing, author platform, and all those.
Yes. But if you're in the paper book business, you're going to be in the word business. And Leann got it. And folks out there, please know, not so much with the first book, because that was chapters written by other people. So my first Act Matrix book didn't have that problem. But the second one, which was, in quotes, authored by 4 people, we had that problem big time. There's huge swaths of the Essential Guide to the Act Matrix that were just words, just extra words written to make the book thick enough for the publisher.
And I think if more people know about this, they'll go a little bit gentler on the authors and possibly gentle on themselves for not having completed the whole book. Right.
Yeah, exactly. I did that as well. I can even think of one. It's an oldie. It's called Toward a Psychology of Being. You may have heard of it, by Abraham Maslow. Well, guess what that suffers from? After halfway through the book, he starts repeating himself like crazy. And even way back when I was first reading, I went, dang, this guy just keeps repeating himself. What's going on? Well, now with my much older brain, so can look back and go, oh, he had a publisher asking him for more words. I guarantee you he needed more words to fill up a book.
I have to give a shout out to one book I read recently where the second half I found more useful than the first.
Now that's a good one.
Yeah.
You ready?
What's that?
A Contextual Behavioral Guide to the Self.
Oh my goodness. I have that book.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely love that book. The first half is theory and matches that RFT and it gets really geeky. But the second half is so practical. It's the way if I was that smart to write a book like that, that is how I would want it written.
Okay. How many people get to the second half?
Yes.
I don't know, but that's why on Instagram I talk about read the second half of this book.
Well, you're giving people permission to read any part of the book that they want.
Yeah, that's right.
Smart idea.
You have permission to read what you want in the book you own.
Wow.
No. I disagree with you too. You got to start.
Someone rated on our parade.
You got to start with the preface and read each chapter one by one till you get to the very end.
All the footnotes.
Kevin, that's called a WTF. What's the function?
I'm fooling with you guys. You know that. But that's the rule. That's what you were taught in school.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Well, wait, you can do things that they didn't say was okay in school?
Yeah, I know, but that's the rule, and so many people fall prey to that.
Yeah.
And part of what I hope you're picking.
By the way, people, the same way that Leann just said, read the second half of the book, read the preface. There's several books that I have read that the preface is the best part of the whole book.
Yeah, you can just put it down and walk away, go do something else.
It was really a great preface, you know. So
you can do that as well.
It does happen sometimes. So yeah, you take a look at the preface. It does well. But anyway, so all of that actionable stuff. So we're talking about the idea that people buying self-help books, often nonfiction books.
Yeah.
And sticking them into their lives, fitting them in, adjusting them into their lives, however you want to say it, so that it's workable.
Right. The whole point of this is it's workable.
Yeah.
If it's not working, do something else.
Right.
I know.
And
and a lot of times we have these rules in our heads, old tapes playing, our mind tells us, well, I have to read the book cover to cover. Kevin said so.
Yeah, Kevin. Kevin was kidding, by the way.
Yeah.
Kevin almost never reads a book that way. I'm around.
My English teacher said so.
I just read where the hell I want to. That's what I don't. I mean, unless it's a fiction book. I would recommend starting fiction books.
Yeah,
that definitely is useful.
Don't really screw up your experience if you read the last chapter. Find out how it ends.
If you want to make it a time traveling book and you just hop around in the storyline, okay, you can go ahead and do that.
But your own story within the book.
But for these nonfiction books, it doesn't matter. There's no beginning or end or anything.
And authors usually say somewhere in the intro or first chapter, if it does matter, because again, they want people to get, hopefully, something valuable out of the book.
Yeah.
And we'll say, please read chapters 1, 2, 3 as a foundation, and then feel free to jump around in the book.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
another thing for reading the preface, usually that's in the preface, right?
And the other thing is you don't have to read one book. When I give book recommendations, sometimes it's 3 books, but I don't mean read all 3 books. I mean read chapter 1 and 2 in this book, chapter 6 in the second book, and then chapter 7 and 8 in the third book. You'll end up reading less, but there also kind of is the natural human inclination of continuing to read more than what was asked.
Yeah.
True.
So
there you go.
That you may not even have to read all of one book. Is another option topical.
So your shtick, Leann, is to help people put nonfiction books into their lives in a workable way, so that it works, so that you don't end up wasting your time.
Yeah,
literally,
right.
Because nonfiction books really aren't fun for the most part.
Hey, some of them are really fun.
Oh.
Yeah, well, but they ain't fun if you turned out and you said, damn, that was a waste of time.
Right, but
you don't want to do that to yourself.
Stuff That Sucks by Ben Seedley. That is a ACT book written for the general public for fun. If you haven't read it, you got to check it out.
There you go.
I haven't read any books.
Really? Seriously? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of books. No. I still read books. I read one recently. I read a whole book recently. It was a tennis coaching book, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And it was pretty good for the first half.
Well, there you go.
But you know what? But for folks know I'm a tennis player, and I play around with the inner game of tennis. Did you know, and this came up earlier today, Leann, the basis, the core basis of the Matrix started with the inner game of tennis, a 1972 book by a guy named Galway. It's also the beginnings of sports psychology. but the
Hey, I
roots,
listened to the Act Matrix on tennis.
right?
So
So
I learned this the other
the
week.
beginnings of it start with the inner game of tennis. So if you want to get a read on Kevin Polk and how he moved toward creating the Act Matrix, it came from initially the inner game of tennis. So I saw something come up. I could download it on Kindle, and you know what, Leann? That is the only way I could get it. There's no paperback. It's
Wow.
too old, wasn't that popular, that kind of thing. But I read it. No, the first step was really good. Had really good stuff. Really did. Really practical, actionable stuff.
Yeah.
There you go. So I can say I recently read a book on stuff, and it literally had actionable stuff, which it fits your criteria.
Yep.
How did you know it was actionable?
Because I could go out and use it the very next time I played tennis.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, that's it. I mean, that actionable. You can literally, the next time you walked onto the tennis court, you could use it. That's actionable.
Yep.
So if you put everything, the same would be for golf or anything else. If you read a book and you can literally take action on it the very next time you do the activity, and it works, then it's workable for you. That's what Leann's talking about, is fitting it into your life and making sure you fit it in there so it has a decent chance of being workable for you.
And even when it's not that, okay, pick up a racket, that direct.
No, that's very direct. I'm just using it as an example.
Right.
But
even books, again, like Brene Brown or A Liberated Mind, Steve's book that just came out, Steve Hayes.
Yeah.
I mean, any book that I have behind me, if you could see me, just think of a pile of books. Most of them are not written to be that quite actionable. And that's when I help people go chapter by chapter and break down, what is that author saying? It almost, I don't want to sound like homework, but you're doing a lot of reflection and analysis in that reading, even if you don't want to call it that. What you're really doing is breaking down, if this person was sitting in front of me, what are they really trying to get across to me?
Okay.
So taking each of those, because I think a lot of times if you say I have to read the whole book to get something out of it, well, we already said you don't have to read the whole book. So if you only read half of it, do you only get half as many actions? Maybe, but you could probably get even more.
What is the statistics on the number of nonfiction books completed, I wonder?
Ooh. And you could probably also only get that really from Amazon Kindle, because they do keep statistics on amount read, because some of their books are paid based on how much you read.
Right. I just wondered. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I bet a lot go unread.
Oh, yeah.
I would agree.
Incomplete. I shouldn't say unread. They read some of it. They just don't read the whole thing.
And, sometimes it's not that time in your life. Again, you may read it and go, this book is really boring, and then pick it up again 6 years ago or 6 years later. And suddenly
great.
It's the best book ever.
And you're in a different context then.
Different context, right. Yep. Oh, yeah. Most definitely, yep.
So.
Well, that's so whatever. However it fits your life, it fits your life.
Right.
Go into it with your, I don't know, knowing your context, knowing where you are, knowing where you want to go in life, with your values relatively clear. Unless it's a book on clarifying your values.
Right.
Then that would be the objective of the book.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
I guess there are books on that, right?
My friend Tim Bronson just came out with the Clarity Method this summer.
Yeah.
And although it is not specifically ACT, I mean, I read it. He's not even familiar with that. He might be. But it is all about clarifying values.
Yeah. Oh, there was a book years ago, Values Clarification. That's what it was called.
I'm sure there's variations on that title for the past 30 years.
Okay, folks, and now Kevin's got to come in. Why would you want to clarify your values? Well, it sounds good for one thing. Yeah. Great. But it's because whether you run by the workability model or not, it still applies to you. It's sort of like gravity.
Yeah.
You may not know a lot about gravity,
it's working on you.
But it's working on you.
Yeah.
It's the older you get, the more you'll notice it too.
You're underattentive.
But anyways, the workability model is there, and that means if you have clarified your values, who and what's important to you, that kind of stuff, then you can ask yourself the question: is this thing that I'm doing, including reading a
like right
nonfiction
now, the
book,
bookstore, only 20
is it working to get me where I want to go? If you're not clarified, you can't do that. And that's one of the big things of ACT, and it's part of the matrix as well, is setting you up so that you can ask that question: is this working for where I want to go?
Right. And then what's happening when you're reading the book is your mind going, oh, these books never work. Why am I bothering? Is it running through well, I really don't have time for this. Do you end up in a stuck loop often when you're trying to get through, when you're home, you spent your $20, you're home, you got the book, what shows up for you?
That's a good question.
Look at that.
Take a look at that too. Notice that. Lots of matrix stuff in here. Lots of noticing. So you're matrixizing this whole process. We go to the bookstore, we notice what we're there for, we pick up the book, we notice what that's for.
Yep.
Notice how that fits in with the context of our lives and where we want to go with our lives, including clarification books on helping us clarify where we want to go in our lives. And then even after you get it home, to continue doing the analysis. How's it working? What's it doing? Just keep doing the matrix as you're reading the book.
Exactly. Yep. Kind of sneaky like that.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I like it. I do that.
No, just was going to say, just to keep yourself aware and noticing throughout the process can be work unto itself.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's noticing workability, and that's a huge part of the whole process.
Just keep coming back to it.
That's the ACT matrix way, which is really ultimately noticing workability. Is what I'm doing working. And by the way, folks, that includes goofing off watching Netflix for 4 or 5 hours, because that might be just what you need to do.
Yes.
That might be just exactly what you need to do right now. And that's very workable. So don't for a moment say I'm dissing on away moves.
We don't diss
or I just want to listen to an audio book for a couple hours, because that's a great way of escaping, and that's just what you need to do. So
right.
I know people who do that. They enjoy the audio book stuff. So whatever, that's fine. Just every once in a while pause and reflect and saying, well, this is working? Is it working?
Exactly.
Right. Is it working to get me where I need to go in life? And sometimes that answer, depending on your circumstances in life, won't be clear to you right away. You'll just have to keep asking that question.
You go right back to reading it too. If you want.
Just go back to reading and allow the answer to appear to you later on. Yes. Don't stress yourself. And literally, folks, I have known folks that ask that question for months before the answer really came clear to them. So
there's so many. For me, if I come home from work after working on a computer all day, my eyes are too tired literally to open a physical book. Yeah. So I'm going to listen. I'm a big Audible fan at night.
You're an Audible fan. There you go. So people love to be read to. I mean, I know I do. It's really great. Brings back all kinds of cool memories to be read to.
Oh yeah, it took me right back to my childhood days. When you said
so Audible had a great idea. Of course, I'm sure Amazon bought them. Pretty sure they're going to buy me pretty soon and bill everybody. It's all going to be Amazon.
Yeah.
But while we're at it, but anyway, Audible's cool. And I just don't want anybody to ever think that ask that question and an epiphany happens and you have an answer to the workability question instantly. No.
It don't work that way.
Life ain't that way. Sometimes.
Well, boy, that'd be cool if it was, right? Just to ask.
Yeah, that'd be great, right? Yeah, that would fix things up really quick. No, life's not that way. It is important to keep asking the question, but it's also to be gentle with yourself and go, the answer is just not apparent to me right now, and it may not be apparent to me for a while. I'll have to keep doing this life thing for a while. Keep asking the question, and finally it'll adjust. I'll figure it out. So be gentle with yourself always, including with
gentle with yourself throughout the entire process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's life's definitely a marathon.
But I love the emphasis on still keep asking the question. I mean, a lot of times a book will pop into your head Saturday morning as you're in the shower, and so beating yourself up on Tuesday that you didn't get anything out of the book when you expected to isn't workable.
Exactly. No. Just keep asking the workability question. And how many? Okay, here's another question for you. How many people go through a lot of self-help books?
Oh, well, that's why they have the term self-help junkie, of which I am one.
I know there are, right? And so they must be doing really well by now.
Oh, they're all brilliant and they have successful everythings, and no.
They all work, and they all work.
Right, they all work. And I think that's the other part of in the nonfiction space. We want hope. We want inspiration.
That's what
we want change. We're humans. We like the things that make us happy. We want to avoid the things that don't make us happy. But setting that appropriate expectation, realizing that change takes time, realizing that the rat is always right. There's a reason, how we got to where you are today. And that it will take time to make those tiny little steps that, again, a self-help junkie may find in 2 or 200 books, depending upon how much time you have on your hands.
But eventually,
but always questioning
and fit it into your life.
Exactly.
Make it reasonable.
Yep.
Cool. Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, nice.
Yes.
What are we going to title it? We need a title.
I'm gonna let the marketing gurus here title it.
Must be Phil.
The running joke is because we're all in the Matrix Mastermind, we all talk about the marketing aspects and let's have an email list, and we won't go down that one again. But
no.
Leann, let me see something about. It's got to be about books. So
here's what it was. It's kind of boring, but what showed up for me is reading for workability.
Oh.
Or something like that.
Matrixizing the bookstore? Can we spell matrix?
What did you say, Phil? What did you say?
I said reading for workability. That was what popped up in my head.
Okay, so far I have the inner game of books. Reading for workability.
There you
How's
go.
that?
Oh, yes. A combo.
Is that marketing guru stuff?
That sounds like marketing guru stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work for us. Okay,
so we'll try it and see if it works.
Well,
there you go.
We'll put it out there and do it. Now I'm trying to find you folks again. So that's a great title, and people will click on that and listen, and we'll keep doing podcasts. So thanks all for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll have Leann back again for some other topic.
Yes.
Something else. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Leann, appreciate it.
Bye-bye now.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off the recording now. Bye-bye.